So, hello everyone, welcome today, and I will present you something about some development tips and tricks. I think if you are not beginner developer, many of those tricks you will already know, but I think maybe you will be surprised about some new things you don't know, and we will take a look at it right now. So let's start with optimization tips. And let's start with layouts. This is nice talk about which layout is more effective than the others. For example, I think many of you know relative layouts, and as I've been talking with people, a lot of people using specifically relative layouts, even if they layouting something which is pretty simple, like positioning one or text view. And you should maybe try to replace it with something more effective. And for example, more effective than relative layout is linear layout or frame layout. Frame layout is just simple layout where you position some views about one above another, and you can just specify some gravity to them. And the measure of that layout and layout of that layout is pretty simple and pretty fast. On the other hand, you can use linear layout, which is more complex, and the measure takes more time. And you should be careful when you're using linear layout with weights, because when you use linear layout with weights, the computation grows exponentially in case you put another layout with weights into another. When you're nesting it, then it grows exponential the time you need for measure. This also apply for relative layouts, where the computation grows exponentially too. So when you're nesting relative layouts one inside another, it also grows exponentially. You can also use constraint layout, which is not so new now. It's about some time when it comes out, and it should be effective, but not so much. You should use it in case you have many views you want to lay out, then it should be faster, but still the measure and the layout is about maybe 10 times or something more complex than in linear layout. So maybe if you don't have so many views, you should rather use some linear layouts or frame layouts if you can. Let's talk about using dimensions, colors, and drawable resources. Because when you're writing a layout in XML file, you can use those resources, and you should use it. Don't use permanent values in layouts, like let's say this is 4 dp tall or something. You should all heights, widths, and all sizes specify in dimen files or colors in a color file, and then you should use it with reference. And why you would do that? You would do that because when you then want to change some color or something for some context, you only need to change it on one place. And we are getting to why don't reuse those values in different contexts, because let's say you specify some button color or something, and when you have two screens with two buttons, they can have the same color right now, but later designer can come and say, let's make this button blue, and you will also change the button on some different screen. So this should be that you should specify this value for every context. So let's say you should multiply it and apply it only for buttons on one screen where the context for the button is the same. So not that all those buttons have the same color doesn't mean they are in the same context. Now let's talk about vector drawables. I think many of you started with putting those PNG files into resources, and everybody, I think, encountered that you filled your folders with HDP, MDP, and other files. And this is pretty resource heavy and your APK will grow with it, you can replace them with vector drawables. You can convert your SVG into XML file and then use it in your application. And this will make your APK smaller, but this can be done only from API level 21 and above. And you can also use it on API lesser than 21, but you need to use support library, which support for it was added in 23.2. And instead of source, you need to use source compat in your XML files. And also you need to put those lines into your Gradle file, which specify that when you're compiling the code, you won't generate those PNGs, because when you compile your APK, it will automatically create PNG files from those vector files. When you specify this, it won't do it. But then when you, let's say you forget to somewhere use source compat and you just use source, your app can crash on lower APA because it will say that it didn't find the resource for it. Another nice thing which was added in Android Studio 1.4 is Vector Asset Studio, which is a tool where you can generate images and app icons and everything you want. There are some clip art icons from Material Design, which you can use and generate easily. Take a look on it, it's pretty great, but I think you know it already. Use ProGuard. Yeah, when you're compiling your APK, you should use ProGuard to make it lesser, to make it more faster and optimized. For that, we can use classic ProGuard Android txt file, which won't apply more optimization into the translated APK. But there's one thing that you can use, and it's a ProGuard Android optimized txt file, which when you use it when you're building your APK, it will also apply some another optimization for your APK which was built. And it should reduce your methods count and other things even more than before. On my medium-sized project, you can see I've saved about 9,000 methods with that. But be careful about that, because when you use it, it sometimes can remove some methods or fields you're using in your app, and the application can start crashing. It's long run when you want to use it, because then you need to specify some ProGuard rules and etc. You can take more look at it on Android sites. Tip number 4, shrinking your APK. This is a nice thing to do, because when you build your APK, it can be, this is again my medium-sized project, where it was about 19 megabytes large, and it's quite a lot. Nowadays, yeah, we have huge phone space, but still it's quite a lot when you want to download on some data or something. And you can make it lesser with just few lines. You can specify in Gradle. When you're building your APK, you can add to Gradle minify enabled size, minify enabled, true. And when you specify that, it will go through the code and apply some optimization for it, and it will shrink the output APK a little. And also, you can use shrink resources true, and it will go through resources, unused resources, and remove them if they are not used. And it also can help you to make your application a little smaller. But using shrink resources also need to have minified enabled true. It depends on that. And then there's one more way how to reduce the APK size, and it's by splitting it by ABI. You can take a more look on how to split your APK by ABI. And this way you will compile your APK for different architectures, like for ARMA-ABI or x86 or something. And this way you can save even more space. But this is a little complicated, because when you're compiling those APK, you need to have each APK with different version code so you can upload them to Play Store. That means that when you're using that, you build like for, let's say, 5 different architectures. You have 5 different APK with 5 different version codes, which you upload to Play Store. And then if you're using some services like Fabric or something, then it will behave like 5 different applications, which is a little pain. So it depends on you if you want those 3 megabytes or not. Building faster. Yeah, let's say about build times, because I think maybe some of you heard about Instant Run. We don't use it so much, we don't like it because, yeah, it compiles a little faster, but on the other hand, sometimes the application comes into some bad state and it start crashing or not displaying things properly. So we usually build application normal way. And what I want to talk here about is nowadays almost in all applications we use multidex because the libraries are so large and we use so many libraries that when we are developing, we almost always need multidex. Even when you create some empty project and you apply your MVVM libraries or something and you put glide here and or retrofit and who knows, you already need multidex for that. And we can help here to ourselves a little, because what multidex mean is when you're compiling for Dalvik, you need to create more than one dex file, because in dex file you can have only maximum of 65,535 methods or something like that. And for that, when we have more methods, we need to make more dex files, and multidex will put them together. And when you're compiling to minimum SDK API 16, sorry for that, for 16, it takes more time because it's putting it together. And on my medium-sized project, it takes about 1 minute and 6 seconds. But when you're building for API 21, it takes less time because there are some optimizations and some things that make it build faster because it's not putting those text files together or something like that. And you save, for example, 20 seconds on my project. And all you need to do to use this is, for example, you can specify product flavors in Gradle and make one flavor for development and one flavor for production and specify different minimum SDK in each flavor. And then when I'm developing, I use the dev flavor, and when I want to build a release production version, I just type the production flavor. Next things that can speed up the development is you can use newest Gradle version, which in every version usually there are some optimization and the compilation time take lesser. And other possible Gradle options are, you can specify some Java arguments, which will speed up your, or doesn't have to speed up your compilation, and it's assigning more memory to Java machine and those stuff. Also you can, which is good trick to specify that the translation of your application compiling should run in daemon, so it uses the same daemon every time. It starts daemon when you first compile your application and then use it again. And the continuous building will take lesser time. And then we have some general tips. For example, versioning in Gradle. When you're building your APK, usually in normal way, you get as output some output.apk file, and you don't really know which version is that, and you need to rename it all the time. And you can change it by specifying your version numbers by variables in Gradle file. And then in your default config specify some properties like version name and version code, and compute from those numbers your version code and name. And then using method rename artifact or some other method name to create new file name for your APK and then specify it as output file. For example, you can see I here generate APK with example, project name, variant, version code, date, and name. And then I know exactly which APK I've built, and I have them nicely. You can go through that code later because we will send you a link. We will post it on our blog, so it will be available. You can take a closer look at it later. Dividing resources. This is nice trick when you have bigger project and you start to having a lot of resources. For example, you have 100 drawables, you have 200 layouts and this stuff. And when you, the old school like me, and you like to orient your project using the old view, the project view, then this can save you a little pain. Because you can see with those lines, I can split my resources into folders. For example, I can put all bitmaps in one bitmap folder, put all values in one values folder, and I also can divide my resources, drawables, and layouts in other folders. For example, I've put all my drawables in drawables folder, and then create button folder, gradient, and selector shape folders for another drawables. You can do this simply by putting those lines in your Gradle file, and it will, and then creating the folders with appropriate names. Also, be careful about that because you need to have a layout folder in each of those folders. For example, when I have layout/layout authentication, I need to have another /layout folder, because this only means that the Android Studio is looking for those layout folders in those destinations. So it still needs to be in the layout folder. Colorful logcat. That's a nice thing to have, because usually when you have classic logcat, it's all gray and only red output is the error and assets. And it's not so readable, and you can change it easily in your Android Studio configuration in the editor colors and fonts and Android logcat. And here you can specify background or foreground color for each of the item. And then you can have, for example, green debug and blue info. So this is a nice thing to have. Own color for to-dos. You will see this later used in a next presentation of Ondra, because he's using it in his project for orientation. Because sometimes you use to-dos, which are blue, in Darkula it's yellow. But sometimes when you're scrolling through the code, you want to make some note where you want to stop and you want to see it on the first look. You can specify your own words in the Android Studio in the to-dos tab in editor. And you can add your own words for here. There's example word, and I specified some foreground and effect for it. And when I then write somewhere in code examples, something, it will automatically apply this style for it. So this is pretty cool. And other last tip, and I think very useful tip, is write clean code. Because when you write clean code, you can better orient in it, and everything's better for you and for your coworkers too. How to do it? There's many ways. I can really tell how to do it too, but I can give you some minor tips which I'm trying to do. First of all, it's about clean package structure. When you're starting to work on some project or something, go with your coworkers. Let's say we will use this structure for our project. For example, we will use splitting by activities, fragments, utilities, view models, and etc. Or you can go through something else and you can split it by features. Let's say we have feature authentication, feature settings, and we will split it like that. But be consistent about that and split it always the same in the project. It will save you time and nerves. Another good thing is to make good class variables methods naming. Try to be creative when you naming your methods or something, because usually you make some method draw or something and you think, okay, this is good method, but then you add another method draw something, and then you are, oh, what does this method do and what is this method do? Yeah, don't be afraid of long names. For example, draw me this. It's not bad to have long class names or method names. Don't be afraid of it. Yeah, and then we have code formatters, which is pretty cool, because in Android Studio you can have code formatter, and when you apply it, it goes through all the code and XML files, and it applies some styles for it. And you can change that style in the Android Studio settings. For example, in our STRV formatter, we have two formatters, one of Alman style and the other style. And we use those formatters for all our projects. So when someone comes on some project and start working on it, and then he put new commit into Git, the code is always the same because we all use the same code formatter. So there's not like someone makes the brackets on the same line, someone put them on the next line. No, it's always the same. Also, you can specify, for example, the order of the methods. You can specify like about how it's in life cycle. So you put first on attach, then on create, and it can also sort methods for you. For example, we have static methods on the start, then we have some public methods, private methods. It can sort it for you. So it's also a good thing to use some code formatter before each commit into Git, then you don't have mess in your Git. So take a look at it, and I think you will like it. And also be consistent about coding. That's the most important part. And now I would like to ask you if some of you have any tips and you would like to share it with us. It would be really great. Nobody have any tips? Oh, okay. Never mind. If you come with some tips, you can find me later in Scroll Space, and we can talk about it. And now is place for your questions. If you have any, raise your hands. Don't be afraid. Also, no questions. Oh, okay. You have a question.
Hi.
Hi.
Maybe about the vector durables, do you have some tool to
Convert them easily?
convert the SVGs to some format that can be then changed to vector durable, because the Vector Asset Studio doesn't support many SVG tags, and usually when I get SVG from designers, they use Photoshop or Sketch or something, and that puts a lot of text that Vector Asset Studio doesn't support. So do you have?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and that's really pain, because usually when you can convert it in on Android Studio or you can find some website where you just put in Google SVG to XML file, and it give you some converter, but like every converter is bad, and it will generate some XML file where the SVG, where the vector drawable won't look the same as in the SVG. And yeah, it's pretty usual, and usually I handle that with editing the XML file by my hand. And usually it takes pretty long time to get it into the right shape. Yeah, you need to rotate some things or move them around. And it's pretty painful, so sadly, I cannot give you any tip about that. Just you need to bear with them. And another question? Okay, so no questions. You can ask me later. So thank you and have a nice day.